Welcome, everybody, to the Wake Up Call channel. The old saying, timing is everything, is truly key. Time is very important when it comes to this psychosis that they have the American people under. And it is not coincidental that a few days after Donald Trump was convicted of all these felons as part of their political theater, and everybody who was conservative got all riled up and couldn't believe that they convicted a former president, and they said how it was just all just to go after him. It was a political attack to silence conservatives, to put an end to the conservative party. This was deliberately done. This shouldn't be allowed. This is illegal. And of course, there's all truth to that. But here's the problem. It's political theater. They're doing this to you psychologically. They're all in on it together. Trump is in on it with the Democrats. It's to bring down the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It is to build a new infrastructure and a new government, a new world order. As most people, you probably would be living under a rock if you've never heard the motto, New World Order. Everybody out there has heard it. They don't understand what it is. They're like, New World Order. Yeah, I've heard what that is. You're watching it in front of your eyes. But in order for a New World Order to flourish, and by flourish, I mean exist out in the open, they have to bring down all governments around us. They're getting Americans to bring down the Constitution and the infrastructure in America on their own. Now, the government is allowing all this stuff to happen with crimes. They're allowing and deliberately bringing things up like Roe v. Wade as a means to gaslight people into wanting the whole structure taken apart. They're trying to convince people that the structure no longer works. That's why they brought Roe v. Wade out, to gaslight Democrats. That's why everything you see going on with conservatives is being done to gaslight conservatives, right? Weaponizing the political system, weaponizing the Department of Justice and the CIA. This is what's being done, but it's being done by design. They're all working together. The Department of Justice is working with the Republicans. The FBI and the CIA are working with the Republicans. They're all parts of secret societies who want to bring down the government infrastructure, and they're doing it by design. They're blaming you for it. They're blaming conservatives and Democrats. They're blaming voters. You have to take responsibility, because if everybody realized that it was this key word going on called sabotage, this would be over very quickly. The civilians cannot realize that it's government sabotage, that the government's gone rogue, because then an empowered consensus of civilians could easily overthrow what's going on here and keep the structure in place and actually do things, the way that they should be getting done, right? The things that we should be asking. Because again, the Democrats ask about votes. They don't believe that Trump got voted in. They think Russian collusion. Republicans don't believe that Biden got voted in. Nobody should believe that any of them are voted in. Nobody would vote for any of these people, period. Okay? Yeah, there's some people who are complete sheeple who would vote for the Joe Bidens of the world. But there's no process in place that even shows us that votes actually are counted, right? These are things that should be done. We should see every single vote handwritten in front of our faces so we can all watch it on C-SPAN for about a month so we can see every single vote. Then we can know it's actually legitimate. But no, that's not the case, because it's not legitimate. They want you to think it's legitimate so that you feel empowered and then you feel responsible. So whatever they have planned with the fake 2024 election, it's going to be what brings down the government. But before we get there, the timing is crucial, right? All you hear conservatives do is scream about it. Every single conservative politician is rallying behind Trump. And we've heard these whispers of the Republican Party leaving the union, Texas, et cetera, with the border. They're continuing to work you psychologically into that. So while that happens with Trump, do you think it's convenient timing that this week, all of a sudden, we have two things happening at once? We now conveniently have Hunter Biden going on trial. And you could already guess that Hunter Biden is going to be found innocent, right? All these stories out there, and this is all fabricated, okay? All this stuff is out there because they want it out there. Hunter Biden smoking crack and all this stuff, they're gaslighting you. They're putting it out there. They're allowing it to be out there for the greater good of the brotherhood, as they call themselves. You don't think the government, with the technology and the capabilities and the monitoring and tracking that they have, could have shut down all those pictures of Hunter Biden with pipes in his mouth? They've been gaslighting conservatives for years, making conservatives think that something's finally going to be done all of a sudden, right? Year after year after year, we've heard about this story. Now he's going on trial. Conservatives want him thrown in jail just like Trump was. And guess what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing is going to happen. And that'll continue until the country is divided in two. Everybody out there hears me talking about it. They hear whispers of national divorce. They see all the psychological stuff like releasing movies called Civil War. That's what their game plan is. And you might not see it yet, but that's what it's headed towards by design. That's what they want. So for you to be out there, anybody who's listening going, I want to be in a red state. I don't want to be near these people. Realize that they're the ones who want you separated from one another. So you shouldn't want that, because that means that there's a greater plan in place, like you being a sitting duck for direct energy weapons and weaponized weather, among many other things. It's not like they're going to give you red states and you're going to be free. It's the illusion of freedom. It's dual communism, okay? And they're gearing us towards that. So with Hunter Biden's going to trial, couldn't be more. That's one of the things that's incredible about all this stuff. Right? If you study some of this stuff, I shouldn't even say study American history, since it's all fabricated for the most part. But if you watch things, like if you're familiar with Watergate and you're familiar with the stuff where Bill Clinton got impeached, yes, political theater. But the stuff that's out there on Joe Biden is so insane, and that's by design, that people out there should have done something by now and remove these people from office for treason. There are employees. They work for us. Right? They're out in the open telling you that they're in bed with other countries, that they're giving our farmland to all these things that are treasonous would have anyone impeached and arrested. They know that. They're telling you that. And now they're going to show you that they can get away with whatever they want and Donald Trump can't. This is part of the psychological divide. The other story going on at the same time I'm about to show you. Dr. Fauci, once again, is in Congress. Perfect timing, right? Because Dr. Fauci is there, and they're talking about what? Well, they're talking about how the entire thing that just occurred was a U.S. government project engineered by scientists. Listen to some of the clips with Dr. Fauci, and everybody out there is talking about it, thinking that something's actually going to happen to him, like he's going to be arrested. Don't forget the fact that Donald Trump had Dr. Fauci with him. Donald Trump was responsible for Operation Warp Speed. They want you to forget about that stuff. But listen to some of the stuff that they talk about. If it doesn't make your blood boil, the fact that these people, they sit there in Congress and they talk to these guys and they continue to allow these people to be free, right? This is to make you think that something is going to occur. These people are as guilty as humanly possible. And keep in mind the notion here that they're quietly putting out there is that the United States are the ones who were responsible for the outbreak. That's important to note, because if that's what they're going to start using as a narrative, that Fauci and the United States covered it up and they were the ones responsible, it also leaves us as sitting ducks for China, for Russia, etc., even though it's our own government who's going to be attacking us from within. Here are some of the highlights, and including the fact that they're openly allowed to use curse words out in public. But listen to Fauci talk about how they were going to do this to people. They were going to make people lose their jobs. These things it's incredible. And our government does nothing about it. How many of you lost your jobs over not getting potion? I know I lost a lot of YouTube channels. That's not my job, but I lost a lot of YouTube channels over it. I know a lot of people out there lost a lot over it. And some people were duped into getting it. These people, they shouldn't be removed from their positions of power. They should be in prison, and that's being friendly about it. But listen to them say all the right things in Congress. Again, Marjorie Taylor Greene, this other McCormick, they say all the things that everybody's thinking, but they do nothing. And that's the point. That's what political theater is. They're continuing to gaslight you so that they can move you and divide you and play you like cattle. Listen to the stuff that went on with Fauci.
Now recognize Dr. McCormick for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Dr. Wenstrup, Chairman. It's been insinuated that politicians, only bloggers, only conspiracy theorists are disagreeing with you. I want to point out that I'm probably the only member of Congress that actually treated patients during the pandemic from the very beginning to the very end of the pandemic, during night shifts in the ER. Thousands of patients during that time. And in 2020, I was censored. My medical license was threatened because I disagreed with bureaucrats. Literally taken off the internet as a person who is treating patients with leading-edge technologies, developing theories, but doing my very best, but being censored by the United States government for the first time, stepping in and taking the place of medical professionals as the experts in healthcare. Any dissent surrounding COVID-19 treatments, mask mandates, and any public policy surrounding the pandemic was immediately labeled as anti-science. And what's funny is everything I was censored on, I was proven to be right. Pretty crazy, isn't it? You said in an interview that you gave as part of an audiobook written by Michael Specter that you believed an institutional should make it hard for people to live their lives so they'd feel pressured to get vaccinated. Could we run the audio clip on that, please?
You think can be done about it. I have to say that I don't see a big solution other than some sort of mandatory vaccination. I know federal officials don't like to use that term.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
Thank you. Are all objections to COVID vaccinations ideological bullshit, Dr. Fauci?
No, they're not, and
Thank
that's
you.
not what I was referring to.
Well, in reference to making it hard for people to get education, traveling, working, I'd say it very much was in context. And I take great offense to this. Miss Allison Williams testified before this committee about losing her job because she sought an exemption for ESPN's vaccine mandate, which came from recommendations from bureaucrats like yourself. She and her husband were actively working with a fertility expert, a physician, on how to get pregnant, and agreed with the premise that she was young, healthy, wanted to get pregnant, and shouldn't get the vaccination for medical purposes. But she was fired because you made it hard, just like you said in your statement, because you didn't want to make sure that the ideological bullshit got in the way of her working, of living her life, of making a medical decision with her healthcare professional. I think America should take great offense to this. That's exactly what you meant when you said making it hard for people to live without getting a vaccination. You affected people's ability to work, travel, be educated, to actually flourish in American society, to self-determine, as we're all given God-given rights. Shame on you. Dr. Fauci, you've become Dr. Fear. Americans do not hate science. I don't hate science. The American people hate having their freedoms taken from them.
This was a time in history where you got to throw out the first pitch at the Washington Nationals baseball game while Americans were forced to stay home and watch such events that they love from at home alone on their televisions. And what a hypocrisy this picture shows. Here you are without your mask, with empty seats everywhere. Remember the cardboard cutout fans? That was one of the most insulting things to Americans, having to watch the games from home where you got to go and enjoy the game and sit right next to people not following the 6 feet of distancing, not wearing your mask, and everyone else was forced to stay home and stop enjoying life. And your science here, your science is displayed perfectly in this picture where children in school were put in plastic bubbles because of your science, your repulsive, evil science. And let's go back to your very own email. You said earlier you don't use email. Oh, you do. Right here. This is your own email where you said the typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out virus. I do not recommend that you wear a mask. This is your email. This is your own words. But yet children all over America were forced to wear masks. Healthy children forced to wear masks, muzzled in their schools. And then they were forced to learn from home because of your so-called science and your medical suggestions while you and all your cronies get paid from Big Pharma. You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity.
So again, even hearing those things, right? You could listen to that and you could be like, wow, they really called him out and we could all be excited. Yeah, saying the things that we're all thinking about. but they don't do anything. And the fact that Fauci even can say some of those things, and then when he's in Congress and there aren't police officers that come in and arrest him when he talks about, well, screw their ideologies and whatever they might actually believe. I'm the science. We're the science. Facebook, these corporations. And again, that's communism, global communism, the corporations running it, right? He's openly talking about, well, if you want to work at Amazon, you want to work at Facebook, right? The same people silencing everyone, the same people responsible, right? But what's the one thing we don't hear? What's the one thing that none of these politicians talk? We hear about the bats and the Wuhan, all that stuff, because that's the formulated narrative they want out there. But you certainly don't hear anything about graphene oxide. You don't hear a word about nanotech at all, because none of them will ever bring that up. And there's certain things, because I know people are on the fence and they're like, well, they want to believe the conservatives because they say the things that they're thinking out loud, even though they do nothing about it. Then they go, well, they have their hands tied. Do they have their hands tied? They have their hands tied. They've done nothing in decades except allow this to happen. And then they're the ones who are gaslighting the public by going into the Senate, going into the House, saying all these things, making it look like a charade. It's like watching a high school play. Every single day, these guys go up there, Taylor Green, they go up there and they talk Gates, and they just yell at each other, Geitz, whatever. They just yell at each other and scream at each other. They're all just actors, screaming, doing nothing. So I understand it's easy to get sucked into this. I understand you can watch it and be like, yeah, they're saying what I want. And then you just keep thinking that something's going to eventually happen. Then boom, nothing is going to eventually happen. We've allowed them to continue to gaslight us into what they ultimately want, which is the separation of us. So this whole rules for thee, not for me, is crucial. I talked about this in 2021. It's crucial. They were doing that deliberately. They were showing Gavin Newsom at sporting events with no mask. They were showing all of these politicians out to dinner with no masks, not social. They were doing it by design. That's what they were doing. What do you think, that some photographer found out where Joe Biden was having dinner and just showed up? How come we don't see that every single day when Joe Biden's out? We see pictures every single day of Gavin Newsom. No. But they were conveniently at all these places taking photographs and then gaslighting you with the whole rules for thee, not for me. And now they're showing it to you again. They're reminding you timing is key. Donald Trump being persecuted on these minuscule charges that are, and that's deliberate. That's deliberate. They could have picked whatever they wanted the charges to be, right? They pick something that's so ridiculous because they know people go, this is ludicrous. This is crazy. Every conservative would agree. They go, you can't put a felony for this. Right? And that's why they chose that. While they show you what? Hunter Biden and all this stuff with him. They show you him with a crack pipe. They show you him doing, remember the story, bringing cocaine in the White House? I mean, it's a joke, but it's a joke by design. That's the point. They're telling you this. They're showing you this to gaslight you. So now with him on trial, with Fauci showing up in Congress, with you hearing what they say, and then pretty much saying, oh, we've turned on the American people. Oh, we're not going to, Dr. Fauci made these rules and these laws up, and he's not going to be held accountable, and Hunter Biden is not going to be held accountable. It's going to be dismissed, and people are going to go nuts, and that's the point. It's another story before the fake outcome of the fake election, not the rigged election. It's very important. Not rigged. Fake. It's not rigged. 0 votes count. Okay, it's not rigged where, the votes are going to be messed up because people who cross the border are going to vote. It is fake, okay? It's predetermined. It's been determined, and they know exactly what's going to come out of it, which is going to be false flags that they create, and it's heading towards the division of states, the blue and red states. People go, there's no way they're ever going to do that. They really don't believe that they're going to do that. Other countries are already in the process of this happening. Places like Ireland are already civilly divided. They are going to divide it, and they're going to use, I'm telling you right now, they're going to use weaponized weather on conservative states because they look at conservatives as people who will not go along with the New World Order. They look at it and they say, well, we tried. Look how many of them have turned on the magic potion, wouldn't take it, etc. They have the ability to manipulate the weather, use direct energy weapons, and they're going to have conservatives as sitting ducks. That's what my fear and concern is. It's almost like the better option is to manipulate your way through the Democratic states. And it won't be that difficult. I understand with the technology, it will be pretty hard, but you're talking about a lot of really stupid people because the people who are on board with what the Democrats are doing are borderline brain dead. They've had lobotomies, so yeah, they'll be trickable people, that's for sure. But anyway, back to the point of the story and me covering it, not just to get you fired up about the stuff they're saying in Congress, which should fire people up when you see Dr. Fauci again get rolled out. The timing. Rules for thee, not for me. Remember that theme and watch Biden walk off. I'd be shocked. They might announce him guilty at first, but it'll be overturned. And the same thing will happen with Trump. Even if Trump somehow goes to prison or whatever they decide to do, okay, they're still having their fake election in the fall. He's not being replaced by somebody else. So watch these stories as they play out. The timing is what you should be tell people about. Ask them, how's that for suspicious timing? Trump last week, this week Biden. Oh, okay, one guy's guilty when everyone thought he'd be innocent. This guy literally has so much stuff that they've released out in the open. Again, it's all theater. But you would say, well, he's definitely going to be guilty based on all the stuff we've seen. In fact, his father should be arrested for treason and he'll walk free. And people are getting to the point where they go, I can't live in this country anymore, or I refuse to pay my taxes. I refuse to be. And that's ultimately what they're trying to do. So don't think that it's some type of saving grace when they split into red and blue states. It's a trap. That's what the point is. That's what I'm trying to warn people about. Because too many people go, that's great. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I don't want to live with these people. These people are freaks. They're trying to lap dance my kids in the public library. I mean, I don't want to live with them anymore. They're the ones who are doing this to people. They're the ones through psychological means have turned people into complete mutants. And you could see these people, how they dress. I mean, you could see how they dress. They dress a certain way. You could identify their politics. I talk about some of them have these, what I call lib glasses. These men, you could look at them, they have these glasses on. You're like, oh, they're a lib. They're a lib. They got the purple, the blue lens or the red. I mean, it's incredible. They're manufacturing human beings. So I can see why people would want to be divided. But don't forget, that's what they want. So if that's what they want, it doesn't mean that it's a solution for us. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.